and he'd mentioned publicly that he liked the shows on T&E. We were thrilled that he came on board for Hotel Paranormal.
Well, we approached T&E. We knew that T&E had such a great success with the more sort of straight paranormal, ghost hunting, haunting genre.
And I am the founder of Spectrum Paranormal Investigations here in the UK. Also a television presenter on Paranormal Captured and The World's Most Unexplained as well.
And he's the one that told my mother the story of Bathsheba. So for Lorraine Warren to just pluck that out of nowhere was fascinating.
Well, my name is Ron Morehead. I'm pretty much responsible for the production of the Sierra Sounds, which are recordings of some big, huge, giant type being in the Sierra Mountains. Recorded the vocalizations in 1971, 72, 73, 74, and had repeated visits in this really remote camp, which is 8,400 feet in elevation, 8 miles in the wilderness. And it's a pretty hard and imposing place to get to, but I've been visited by the Johnson brothers and hunted by the Johnson brothers since 1958. So when I heard the story from one of the guys who came out, and he said, I'm not going back. And the guys hadn't come out when they're supposed to. So the wives were all worried because some monsters up there. Nobody's looking for Bigfoot. It wasn't anybody's target. But anyway, make a long story short, I went back. That's how I got involved. He wouldn't go back by himself to check on the other guys. So they didn't know at the time what they were dealing with. So anyway, that kind of got it rolling with me, and it wasn't until later on when we brought an investigative reporter in, and he experienced the same thing, but he was looking for a hoax, and we recorded these anomalous sounds, very vocalizations, and he had them. He realized the significance of it. He couldn't find the hoax in anything up there, just too imposing, no trickery or nothing going on. We knew that, but he didn't. He had to find out for sure. So he got a professor at the University of Wyoming to study the sounds for a year, and he showed wrote a paper on it and showed that the sounds were outside the human range, inside the human range, and outside the human range. So they have an expansive, very expansive vocal mechanism, more superior than ours, and they can make tones and reach frequencies we can't reach. Cryptolinguist heard it by accident in 2008. And he said, I hear language in that, I thought. So he came out and visited me and a couple of the other guys and got a permission to study the sounds. And he's trained by the Navy, 2-time graduate of the Navy's Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. I've vetted him very well because I've had other people tell me they want to do this, but I don't let just anybody have at it, because they're not qualified. This guy's qualified, more than qualified. When I find out. Anyway, he came back and said they have a language by the human definition of language. This is where it gets interesting because according to Dr. Philip Lieberman at Brown University, only humans have a vocal mechanism for language. So that put those three things together, you got yourself a human hybrid or a hybrid of some type with a human component. And that kind of gives a little credibility to some of the DNA studies that's been done when they say they've been contaminated because they have human DNA in them. Well, maybe there really is human DNA in them, and they are part human, according to my studies and what I've come across now. They are part human, but that wasn't all we experienced up there. We got into some really screwy stuff. I guess your show's about the paranormal. Let me make something real quick here, because I wrote a book called Quantum Bigfoot, as you know. And what I want to say is that the paranormal and quantum physics is not synonymous. They're not the same at all. Some people want to call me a paranormal researcher. I'm not. I'm a class of citizen scientist, I guess, over here, trying to figure out how these anomalies happened that were happening to us up there. We're talking about lights and sounds that we couldn't identify. I don't mean vocalizations. I'm talking about crazy sounds. I mean, metallic sounds, just da-da-da. Orbs will follow us around up there. You hear things that were happening, and we never could figure that out. So Al Berry, the guy we took in to investigate, said, whatever you do, don't talk about the strange stuff that goes on up here. he had a master's degree in science. And he says, science just throw you out with baby water, start talking about this stuff. But I do now, because I think I found a science that really answers the paranormal stuff we was experiencing. And the science is quantum mechanics. Now, paranormal is pseudoscience. It's what people think about certain things, and it's really not science at all. Where science, I think quantum science will answer a lot of the paranormal stuff that happens. And that's where I get into my book, how that stuff happens scientifically, to like ghosts and just stuff that you don't understand. And modern science, and that's what our quantum science is modern science. It's a little about 100 years old. It's what Einstein, or Tesla, Schrodinger, all those physicists back in the old days studied just over 100 years ago. Where Newtonian physics is what we're all brought up with. That's what we understand is just our three-dimensional environment, the three that we live in. And that's all we can, but it's based on everything being physical, measurable, predictable, material. It's not. Things aren't that way. Everything we see with our two eyes are that way. And that's where I get into different things. My book, The Enneagram, The Third Eye, but I also get into the other dimensions that exist out there. And according to physics, there's 11. And 10, counting one more, counting time, there's a fourth dimension. So anyway, it answers a lot of the questions that we were experiencing. I'm satisfied with it, and a lot of people are tuning into it now because it answers a lot of the questions in Quantum Bigfoot. We see, our three-dimensional eyes only see within 430 and 770 terahertz. That's our frequency. Everything's energy, frequency, and vibration. That's according to Tesla. According to physics, that's the way it is. Everything's energy, frequency, and vibration. So our frequency that we see with our light is light frequency, is in that range of 430 to 770 terahertz. Well, there's all this other stuff going on outside of what we just don't see everything there is to see. That's why some people see a ghost, some people see this. Every once in a while, you get a glimpse into that other world, but normally we only see within our three-dimensional environment. And yet there's more going on. We don't smell everything there is. A bear's olfactory sense can be 2,100 times better than a human's. And you talk about ultrasound, infrasound, like a dog's hearing, it goes way up there in the ultrasound. And you got infrasound, which elephants and tigers and big animals use infrasound. We don't hear it, but we feel it. So that could be what went on with us up there, some of that stuff. Because times when we were frozen just in our tracks. I was, me and Warren Johnson. We thought we was going to see one of these things when we jumped out of our shelter, and had to be behind this big tree. It was mouthing off, and we was getting kind of brave then because they realized they hadn't eaten us. Nothing had gotten us or carried us away or nothing like that. So we wanted to see one. We jumped out and started walking up towards that tree. And, right moonlit night, we're going to see this thing run away, right? No, nothing was running away. And all of a sudden, we just got froze in our tracks, probably 15, 20 feet from that tree. And had to be behind that tree, because otherwise we don't saw it, we think. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he said, I don't know about you, I can't go any further. And I said, I can't either. And it's like a force field. I described that in my book, The Voices in the Wilderness. And so we could go backwards, but we couldn't go forward. Now, I explained that to a scientist later on. He said, well, we don't want your fear involved in this. I said, we weren't afraid. We weren't not afraid at that time. We just wanted to see this thing. By then, we've been interacting with it, back and forth, trying to get a finger on it. It's like trying to nail Jello to the wall. You can't trick them. And we've been trying to trick them, trying to get the camera trapped, rigged up, all kinds of stuff like that. But the way, let me go back to something you mentioned about how they disappear, in my opinion. Somehow, with their expansive vocal mechanism, I think they can create a frequency that allows them to go out of our perception. And that frequency will change possibly. And by the way, let me say this right quick. Energy and matter are interchangeable. That's physics. That's the rule. And they say it's just a theory. Well, it has to be disproven mathematically before the physicists will accept it. So it's accepted that energy and E equals MC squared, right? That's the whole equation, which energy and matter are interchangeable. Well, if that's the case, these things are matter, and like we're matter. And if they can change their matter into energy, you wouldn't see them anymore. they would go through that, probably through that fourth dimensional time thing. It might appear something like a ghost. Depends on temperature, I think. My opinion again. This is my opinion. Just get that out there. But their trackways would stop because they'd have no more density. And this happened to me once. My daughter had a sighting. We found the trackway. And bam, bam, bipedal trackway, heavy, deep. It just stopped. And now it's happened to me. So I thought, my gosh, where did this thing go? I looked in the tree. Could have jumped to a boulder. Where could it have gone? No. So their density changes if their matter changes into energy. Then they might turn into an orb. That's the energy. And that orb might just go into a tree. That sounds a little creepy. Well, we have, I think, energy, matter. They yes, orbs have an intelligent something about them. They're moving. I was in a movie or film with David Paulides. He filmed called 411 The Hunted. And they recreated this tube of light that we saw go by us up there. And that was in 2016 when we saw that. He recreated. I took him up to our camp in 2018. He did a filming and interviewed me there where the camp was. And anyway, that's energy. It was definitely controlled. It just moving right through the trees, just a long bolt of light, but it wasn't bolting. It was moving slowly through the trees. What do you do with that when you see it? You know, what do you do with that? But these things, and also the Johnson brothers, Albert wrote about this in his book. He said that the Johnson brothers were honest people, and they had these orbs falling around over their heads up there. And we've all seen orbs at different times. I seen a UFO one time up there coming down. It looked like the moon was falling in slow motion, except it was blue. And that's the only time I've seen something that relates these things, because it's all happening with the Bigfoot stuff was happening too. So I think there is a connection with the UFOs and aliens and Bigfoot. Well, there's a saying, if you don't see what made it, you don't really know what made it. So you don't know if the Boy Scouts were out there, if a hunter did it, or if these things did it. I don't know. You know, we didn't look for structures. We didn't see structures up there. We weren't looking for that. We were looking for these beings, wherever they were. Where were they at in the daytime? When I know they're out and about in the daytime, but we never saw one in the daytime. Usually dusk or something like that. But sometimes we'd go out hiking in the daytime, come back, and there'd be these Bigfoot tracks by our horses. And that tells me that they were there examining our horses. And, you know, it's all still a mystery. I've been doing this now for over 50 years, and it just gets more exciting all the time, because it's something that's got to get answered, right? I didn't believe or disbelieve. Nobody had Bigfoot on the radar. When I was asked to go up there by this guy that would go back by himself, none of us knew what it was. There's a monster in the woods up there, so we thought maybe it's some ape that hadn't been identified. And that's what a lot of researchers are looking for now, the ape in the woods. And I say there's a lot more to them than that. Most of the guys that are talking about this never had any experience with this. I have, and there's something strange going on with them. Now, I personally think they've been on this planet longer than we have as a human species, and they've evolved more. And maybe I believe in UFOs and aliens. And I don't think anybody have to head up their sand, sand up their head. No, why is that? Head in the sand, in the sand. If they don't believe that there's more going on in this universe, and we're not the top-notch three-dimensional beings that we think we are. These things have been here longer than we have. I think aliens have been coming here much longer than we have been. And I've been all over the world. I've been down in Peru and Bolivia a couple of times, which really was my eye opener down there, to see the structures that have been built by something that had more advanced technology than we have today. And it's examining these ParaDoc skulls, these elongated skulls, and I wanted to see if they had anything to do with the big sagittal crest that's reported on these Bigfoots up here sometimes. So that's what I was doing down there. And there's a crumb truck leading all the way up to the Paiutes in the Lovelock Caves. They're finding these elongated skulls all over the world. It's not just down there. The longest ones, the biggest ones, I think, kind of down there. They had like 30% more brain matter. Now, the Incas used to cradleboard their youth, their royalty. They call it cranial deformation, but it would elongate the skull. It'd bind their head and elongate the skull, but it didn't give more brain matter. So they just had a long skull, same brain. That had to hurt. Yeah, think about that. They did that for the first couple of years of baby. It was royalty. They was trying to get them to have the same attributes that these pre-Inca people had, the ones who had naturally elongated skulls. And they never got that attribute because they weren't, that's not what they were. They were still humans. These things weren't totally human. They had one single parietal, no sagittal suture, like we have two parietals, one on each side of our head with a sagittal suture. They don't have that. It opens your mind up to realizing there's something else been here on this planet. And it's something that knows more than we do now. And you see this, I'm starting to see this stuff all over the world. Brian Forrester, he trips all over the world seeing these things and taking pictures of them and spreading it around. So he's written a couple of books. He lives down in Paracas, and he was our guide down there to some of these anomalous places. I have my theory on it, which I think it's called quantum entanglement. It's when you see a flock of birds all moving together up in the sky, they're not talking to each other. One of them, lead bird don't say, let's all turn left at count of three. They're not talking to each other. I'm a scuba diver. I've seen schools of fish all swimming together. Most people have seen pictures of that, but they're not talking to each other. How do they do that? Well, they're entangled with each other. And that's what we are if we only wake up to it. That's how I think telepathy works. That's how, if they tune in, I think, to your frequency, and they can mind speak to some people who allow the frequency to come. I don't, people ask me if I've heard it happen to me, and I said, I can't say that I have because I'm very analytical. When these things were talking to me, I say talking, they were saying something to me. According to the cryptolinguists, they were slowing their rapid vocalizations down to something they thought I might be able to understand. I was mimicking them back. This was at the Sierra camp, and I got recordings of that. And it's just a phenomenal thing to happen. And what they were trying to say, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to actually vocally tell me something because they couldn't mind speak to me. I don't know. I don't know. But mind speak, I think, happens. And I think it's all about frequency again. I think it's energy, frequency, and vibration. So if you can get the frequency of something, you can change it. That's how I think the masters of old did their miracles, is through the laws of quantum physics. Because we're supposed to be able to do the same thing, but we have not evolved that much yet. It's becoming one with what we really are. We're running around here like separate little people. We are, in a way, we're separate, but we're all one consciousness, and we're called come from one consciousness. And if we can learn how to listen to that, and I believe that's one chapter of my book called Pineal Gland. That's our third eye. That's the eye of Horus that the Egyptians have and all that. If you can learn how to open that through meditation and allow information to come in. See, prayer is when you're asking for something. Meditation is when you're ready to receive something. You just have to get quiet, get in your special spot, and let that happen. You can't make something happen unless you just allow it to happen. Then that third eye will start picking up things. See, the third eye, the reason I call it third eye is because it's just like an eyeball, except it doesn't require light. It's not out here, it's in the middle of your head. And it's just, it's an amazing little gland. And I think we have to learn how to open that. And once you get it open, they can tune in your frequency and mind speak to you. You'll hear something coming. Your intuitiveness will get better. We're all intuitive. We just have to learn how to exercise it, how to learn how to make it happen. And that's just, I think that's done by decalcifying your pituitary gland, pineal gland, because we calcify with our diets. And it's dumbing us down every day with our diets. And if you learn how to eat right and meditate, you can get yourself closer to the oneness that we're supposed to be. And also, there's another little key that we can talk at the end of this. I talk about how you do that. It's very important. Another thing, not just open up your mind, but make sure your heart and your brain is in coherence with each other, and that you're balancing your chakras all the way through your body, and then relax and listen and be still. And you'll find that things just get better for you. And they do. start treating people with love and compassion. I gotta say it now. I'll say it again later. You start not being a victim. So many people want to be a victim when something happens to them. Well, don't be a victim. Realize that we're here on this planet for experiences. I'm having experiences like you wouldn't believe in my life. I've had a charmed life, I say. Been very, very fortunate to experience everything I've experienced. And this Bigfoot thing, I think, is what's led me into quantum physics. As the night I was recording the sounds, and I got one sound on my CD called the Samurai Cry, and that's been coined by Matt Moneymaker of the BFRO. And he coined that before he started the BFRO when he heard the sound. And it's when one of them screamed out, but that's when one of them was chattering down there by the creek too with the little one. And we think it was a little voice anyway. But yeah, I saw that thing when it screamed, and it was like exploding so fast down through the trees. And humans can't do what I saw. There's logs, there's everything else down there that trip somebody, especially going that fast, but it was just smooth, very fast too. Really cool memory. It is, in my opinion. It's all about energy, frequency, and vibration. There we go again. Yeah, well, there's a reason you don't find bones. There's more than one reason. First of all, nature will take care of itself. So, one time I was going up to camp, and we just came across this bear who was devouring a freshly killed deer. Didn't see the bear, see the dust from the bear. Got there, and the prints had shot off, But we thought, well, we better hightail it. We're messing up this guy's lunch, So we hurried on into camp. We was walking, and anyway, well, a couple weeks later, maybe, more was eaten. It was all just bones laying there, But a year later, there was just a few bones laying around. And 2 years later, you couldn't even tell anything had ever happened. So nature will clean up things. I had a bear come on my property where my ranch down in the valley there. And I called, he died. He got hit by something, I guess. I don't know what, but anyway, it was a dead bear. I called the Fish and Game to see if they could come pick it up or do something about it. And they said, no, we don't. So because it was laying and died right there in a bunch of poison oak, I just left it there. Well, the next year, they don't see much of it. Following year, you never know it's there. So that's one theory. The other theory is where you get into the quote unquote paranormal. Well, if they are energy, again, Einstein, Stephen Hawking, they say energy can't die. We know that, right? That's physics. Energy, what we are, this bodily form will deteriorate, but our consciousness, our energy continues on. It doesn't die. And that's kind of hard for people to understand, but if you're religious, you think you're going to go to heaven. You kind of hope so anyway. And then if you're a physicist, you're just going to change forms because that's what happens. We change into something else. And that's what we can bank on, So what's going to happen after that, we don't know. But if these things are able to change their matter into energy, like I think they probably can, then that also means they can go through things and into things. Whether it be a tree, a boulder, or underground, or wherever they go. We don't find the body because of that. That's my second answer. So I kind of go with that one until somebody proves me wrong with a body or something. A lot of people claim they've shot them, but they never can find a body. And I say a lot of people, a few people. Glenn Beck being one of them in 1924. Swears him down, he shot one, and it fell off a cliff, but they couldn't find the body. And that was in Mount St. Helens, behind Mount St. Helens. So, and I've talked to other people that say they shot them, but they never could find a trace of them. You know about the Skinwalker Ranch, yeah. That's if you ever read the book, you would. I don't know if you have, but they're called shapeshifters because they walk in some other kind of skin, I guess, skinwalker, and that's what Native Americans call them. They have for eons. And I've had a little, not in personal experience, but my granddaughter did, and kind of a thing I sometimes talk about, but because I didn't experience it myself, I don't usually. But they're not dummies, My daughters saw these things 3 times, and my granddaughter was with us at one time. We weren't at the camp, but we was at another camp somewhere else where nobody was around. And early that morning, something been messing with their tent that night, and it freaked them out because we're in Bigfoot country there. And that early that morning, my daughter saw one run right across, two-legged, just bam. That's the one later on we found track away, by the way. And my granddaughter was walking over there because it was daylight. And she thought, oh, good, Wendy's going to see this thing. I won't be the only one seeing it. Anyway, Wendy, she came back. Did you see anything strange? She said, yeah, I was walking along over there, and this big white wolf jumped up right in front of me and just looked at me and ran up the mountain. So you take it from there. Supposed to be any wolves in that area. I tried to talk her out of that. I said, wolves aren't here. You see a coyote? She said, no, I saw a wolf. And so anyway, there are wolves up there. People say there's no more wolves in this area. Some more grizzly bears here as well. I know I saw a couple of wolves up there myself. So either that or it's these things shifting into the body of a wolf so that they can get around without being spotted more in the daytime. I don't know if they travel with them, but I heard a bunch of coyotes one night way over on the other side of the ridge. I heard this Bigfoot scream. I thought it was a Bigfoot. Didn't see it, but that's what it sounded like. And I think they try to sometimes mimic something so they can draw it in, and maybe they eat them. I don't know. Maybe they cut them. I don't know what they're doing with coyotes. I've experienced just about all those things. I thought I heard a car door slam outside our shelter. Now we're 8 miles in the wilderness, no roads, hardly any trails you can get there. And you got to know where it's at to find it. Another time I heard metallic sounds. I couldn't identify where they were coming from. There's nothing there. One time I thought I heard a big tuning fork. It sounded like this, a big up above us in the daytime. You look around, you can't see the source of it. So is something out there cloaking? It's out of our parameters of our visual range anyway, whatever it is. I don't know if it's cloaking or interdimensional. Probably interdimensional. Maybe it's all synonymous. They're out of our visual range. What frequency are they in? Well, for some reason they allowed us to record them up there, which is pretty much unheard of. I've had a lot of people tell me they've heard the sounds that we recorded, and they don't record them though. They don't have a recorder with them. They're out in the woods hunting or something like that, and they hear what they think is their dog's name being called when their dog's not with them. They think they hear sometimes the name of someone they know, and that person's not with them. Stuff like that happens. Because here's the deal. They toy with us. They do mess with you. Because they think that we think we're smarter than them. They do. Because we act that way. We do. We think we're smarter than them. Trying to rig up all these traps up there, trying to catch them. No. It's way ahead of us. I just know that we set up camera traps. We lost 3 cameras up there, got batted off trees. And they were high enough to where nothing else was going to do it unless it was a bear, and a bear wasn't there. We'd known that. So you can't trick them very well. I tell people, if you want to encounter with them, just don't try to trick them. Just go out there and try to experience. Just be there. Just be. And you can't make something happen to these things. You got to allow it to happen, and you got to be ready for it. Don't let your fear control you, because fear will be your enemy. And if these things start screaming at you right there, relax, because we have dominion on this planet. Not dominance necessarily, but we have dominion. And if you want to get rid of them, just say go away, and they will go away. You have control in that regard. You can't demand them to come in, though. Well, I think UFOs and Sasquatch, they have some type of connection. Aliens and Sasquatch have some type of connection. According to the Huffington Post in 2012, they found an article out of Eureka Times from 1888 where these ranchers and a group of Native Americans saw this moon come down from the sky, and 3 crazy bears jumped out of it. There's your first UFO report, written about in a newspaper, I think. And a lot of people see that, there's a UFO connection. I've talked to people that have seen a UFO when they were encountering Bigfoot, and I didn't see a Bigfoot and a UFO at the same time, but when I saw the UFO, the big ball that was coming down from the sky, a blue ball. That's when our Bigfoot activity was happening. So, yeah, I think there's a connection. And they say there's like 20% of the Bigfoot sightings have a UFO component to them. It's kind of interesting. It's happening to too many people for them to just close. We closed up to some of that stuff for a long time just because you can't explain it. I think I explained it in my Quantum Bigfoot book. And let's see, wait a minute. In case you don't have one, here's what they look like. Okay. Yeah, that's been very popular because it gets into the spirituality and quantum physics are kind of synonymous in my opinion. Because you get into like Tesla said, well, one man calls God, another one calls quantum physics. And you got Einstein saying, science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. Something like that, and just a quick little sentence he comes up with. And I think if he could say it today, though, he'd say spirituality, because we are all spiritual beings. Like it or not, we are. That's just what we are. We're energy embodied in this body. And we're going to leave. We're all going to stop. This is going to stop one of these days. And we're going to keep going into something else. And I look forward to it, to be honest with you. It's going to be fun. But we're here for the experience. We got to experience things and react to them properly to raise our personal vibrational frequency, because we're all headed for another dimension, unless you want to come back here and experience something again. Multiple embodiments, and that's reincarnation, some people call it. But if you haven't learned something the first time around, you're going to have to learn it somewhere sooner or later. So you learn how to respond to things with love and compassion, and you'll be okay. And your vibrational frequency will raise, and you'll be able to transform. I was raised religiously, and I know scriptures pretty well. So when I got into this field, I kind of put my religious training behind me, but in a way I kept the nuggets out of that, which fit with the quantum physics I was looking at. Just they're synonymous. That's where Tesla says that, one man calls God, another one calls quantum physics. So anyway, it encourages me a lot. That you got getting into this matter antimatter thing. You know who Paul Dirac was? Dr. Paul Dirac. He was an unknown, I say unknown, very popular in the physics department, but he got a Nobel Prize in 1933 for the mathematical equation that established mathematically antimatter. Antimatter. Okay, so you got matter and you got antimatter. Da, 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 da. Well, that works off Einstein's equal to MC squared. Energy and matter are transferable, interchangeable, I should say. And anyway, in 1933, he won the Nobel Prize for that equation. And in 2012, CERN in Switzerland, collider, established that physically when they got a particle change into energy. That's have to go fast. There's all these things are blurry, right? They're speeding up. Yeah. That's a little science behind it. That's the kind of things I like to get into, to how this stuff is explained through the science of quantum physics. And I don't call myself a paranormal investigator, but I've had those things that are called paranormal happen to me. And I think they're explained through the science of quantum physics, a lot of them, if not all of them. I asked, when I was a little boy, how far is it to the end of the universe? What's out there? You look up the stars, and what's the end of this thing? Is there a wall out there somewhere? Well, what's on the inside of the wall? Is there a cliff? What's on the inside of the cliff? What's out? How can it end? Well, I asked that question when I got older and got in the scientific community with a little bit of time. And I said, somebody tell me how far it is to the end of the universe. Well, everything's supposed to be in Newtonian physics, everything is measurable, right? Well, if everything's measurable, how far is it to the end of the universe? You can't answer that. You can conceive it, though. You can only conceive quantum physics. You'll never put a finger on it like we're talking right now. In this three-dimensional environment, you have to get out of that with your conceptual thoughts. And we are all evolving, I think, more into that as more and more people talk like we're talking now. Well, yeah, the producer called me not too long ago. Wanted to know if I would be interested to go back up there if they did a second series on it. So I'm not sure if they're going to get the funding for that, if they're going to do it or not. But yeah, I was up there series 4 and 5, I think, on Alaska Killer Bigfoot. Good experience. They flew me in Anchorage, then flew me down to Homer, Alaska, then took me by helicopter into this abandoned village where historically these people got about 30 of them got mutilated or murdered or missing or something happened to them. So they just abandoned the village. The locals, their descendants from those people, wanted to reopen that village for the fishing. And it's a fishing village. And so they wanted to know if it was safe to do that because these things are out there. Well, but don't put any pressure on me, right? Tell them it's safe or not. That's a little, you can't do that because, yeah, it's safe until they tear your arms off or something. But what I suspect, and this is just my opinion, I told them this, I said, because when I flew over in a helicopter, I had a helicopter circle a few times before I landed there, and I looked it over the area. It had been years and years ago, you could tell it had been timbered a lot of timbering. And they also, from the pictures I saw, were overfishing it. I mean, fish is fish. I mean, my gosh. And they were also mining that area. So I said, I think possibly it might have just been overdoing it for the environment, just not just killing the country, killing the area. And these things, it's pretty much their area too. And I guarantee you, if one of these things, I say guarantee, I say I would guarantee if one of these things, 12, 15 foot tall, walked out of the trees up there and started beating his chest or something, growling at you because he's mad about you, because he's mad because you're doing what you're doing, somebody would have shot at it. And that would have pissed it off, don't you think? Anyway, that's my opinion. That's the advice I gave me. If you come back, just be one with the nature. Try not to overdo the area and stay within the boundaries. These things live up there, and they are there. By the way, there's something going on up there. I don't say that lightly because I was there and some strange things went on. So, and no one's there except us and the filming crew. So it was a good experience. I really enjoyed it, and I would do it again if they asked me. And we'll see. We don't know yet. There's things they experience up there that's not on these episodes that they told me about that I know about. So, but can't talk about that either because they might want to introduce it in the second series, if there is one. So. Well, thank you, Trevor. I appreciate you having me on tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much.